This is your brain on Eruption. Eruption has been a problem since the meta shakeup happened. When Call of Brine was released, Overcharge was reworked, and Eruption was buffed. Now, currently, when killers run Eruption, you often see this as the strategy. Holding 3 gens, hardly chasing anybody, and hoping that a survivor makes just enough of a mistake so that you can get it down and potentially even sort of camp them in this sort of 3 gen. And it's extraordinarily boring. It's doing two things. It's causing a lot of problems in two specific ways. Killers are, one, being taught that they don't have to outplay survivors, they simply need to make the game last long enough so that there are no more resources left on the map and that they will win by default. It's also completely denying survivor players the ability to play the game. The survivors have to hope that they can hop off the gen right before their solo queue teammate goes down, and if they can't, they simply have to stand there with Incapacitated for a lengthy duration of time where they cannot heal, they cannot do boons, they cannot do totems, they can't open a chest, they can't even mend, so they have to just sprint in circles. It's a bit of a ridiculous thing that the Incapacitated effect exists because it does lock survivors out of engaging with the game in any functional way for a duration of time. It's mind-boggling. And Eruption's getting changed. I know, killer players are going to say in the comments, this game is so survivor-sided, but I promise you, people were playing this game pretty well and doing pretty well against survivors before Eruption came out. And unfortunately now I think killers are going to have to face the hard truth that they've probably been using this perk so much that they've gotten a little bit lazy and they don't really know how to play the game without it. So first off, come to our boot camps every Friday night on Twitch, or watch our boot camp videos here where we try to get you into a kill your friends. You can play against our community with no judgment, no shame, and you can get live feedback. I promise you it's worth it because Eruption's getting nerfed, and you're going to need the help if you feel like you can't win without Eruption. So, how is Eruption going to get nerfed? Well, the behavior is stated that Eruption will now cause the generator to lose 10% of its current progress instead of total progress. What this means is it will take a percent of a percent. If your gen is at 50%, it'll regress by 10% of the 50. So, if it's at 50%, 10% of 50% is 5%, right? So that is kind of how that will work. That means that it will take larger chunks off of gens that are more close to completion. But in addition to that, Eruption will no longer apply the Incapacitated status effect to survivors who were repairing the gen when it exploded. Instead, survivors who are actively working on the generator will scream and reveal their aura to the killer for 10 seconds. So, do we like this change, and is it good? As a killer player primarily, it's not going to really bother me. I never ran Eruption before, so I'm not going to need it now. For survivors, this is an incredible change, and hurrah, you should be able to play the game that you paid for. You should be able to not just have to stand around and do nothing. So that's pretty sick. That's pretty awesome. And again, I have to reiterate, killer players, if you're really mad about this, you probably were using this perk too much. Now, what are the downsides of the Eruption change? Well, honestly, it's kind of boring and it's a little bit lazy. Simply removing the status effect and then proccing and aura reading is nifty, but it's not really any different than any culmination of other perks. I don't really love this. I think that there could have been a lot more that was interesting about it. Anyone who's on the gen automatically gets a 15% debuff for the next 60 seconds or something like that. I think that is a far more substantive change than if it just regresses by 4%, 3%, and then shows some auras, especially if it's across the map or something of that nature. And additionally, I think Eruption proccing on kick is still boring. Eruption, Overcharge, and Brine are still kicking perks, and they're going to be part of this kick meta, and I think that's just really boring. So I don't know. I'm glad that Incapacitated is not a thing. I still think that a lot of killer players are going to be running these 3 perks to try to hold on to games that they could be winning by other means. So I don't know. Is it bad? Is it good? I think it's really, really healthy for the game as a whole. For killer players, again, if you feel like you need this, I can't say it enough. You probably should be working in other ways to learn other parts of the game and come join us on the bootcamp. And for survivors, this is a big hurrah.